Notice Ralph by Bonnie Bishop, illustrated by Jack Kent. Ralph was a parrot. He lived in the city with Mr. and Mrs. Muggs. Mr. Muggs was a teacher. He taught math in a school. Mrs. Muggs was an artist. She worked in the office and drew pictures for birthday cards. Ralph was happy living with Mr. and Mrs. Muggs. He had his own perch to sit on and his own water dish. Ralph could whistle and even say words. He was proud that he could talk because it made the people notice him. Hello, you see Ralph said hello. Every morning, Ralph woke up at 7 o'clock. He would shake himself all over. He would take a drink of water. Then he would loudly whistle. Mr. and Mrs. Muggs would wake up. Hello, Ralph, they would say. Ralph would answer, hello. One Saturday, Ralph forgot what day it was. He whistled at 7 o'clock. Mr. and Mrs. Muggs got up, they got dressed, and went to work. When Mrs. Muggs got to her office, no one was there. When Mr. Muggs got to school, it was closed. They were not happy when they came home. Did you forget it was Saturday? They asked Ralph. Ralph felt foolish. After that, he was more careful about remembering what day of the week it was. Ralph loved to eat crackers. He liked the kind with the sesame seeds on top. When he was hungry, he would say, give me a cracker. Mr. and Mrs. Muggs would get him one from the box. They could not leave the box open because when it came to eating crackers, Ralph did not know when to stop. When Ralph wanted someone to notice him, he would say, I love you. It always worked. Mr. Muggs would stop reading his book and come over to Ralph. Mrs. Muggs would stop drawing and come over too. Mr. Muggs liked to tease and tickle Ralph, and Ralph liked to tease and tickle Mr. Muggs. Mrs. Muggs liked to scratch Ralph on the neck, and Ralph liked to nibble on Mrs. Muggs' chin. Ralph's favorite time in the evening. On cold winter evenings, Mr. and Mrs. Muggs would sit around the fireplace and eat popcorn. Ralph would remind them by saying, fire! Then Mr. Muggs would start the fire and pop the corn. They had a lot of fun together. Ralph wished they could be together all the time. You see them sitting around the fire, eating popcorn. He did not like it when Mr. and Mrs. Muggs went to work. He sat on his perch and sulked. One day, Mr. Muggs left the window open by mistake. At first, Ralph did not notice it. He was sulking as usual. Then he felt a breeze. He saw that the window was open. It gave him a wonderful idea. What do you think this idea was? He would fly out the window. He would fly down to the street. He would make someone notice him. Ralph took off. He did not fly very well because he was not used to flying. When he reached the sidewalk, he almost landed on his tail. He shook himself to be sure nothing was broken. Then he looked around. Across the sidewalk was a funny-looking red thing. Ralph thought it would be a good perch. He ran over to it, he flew to the top, and rolled his eyes. Can you see him sitting on with the red object he thought was a perch? The street was crowded with people. Now I'll whistle, thought Ralph, and someone will notice me. Just then, an old lady walked by. Ralph whistled loudly. The lady did not see Ralph. She turned around and saw a man walking behind her. She said, Don't whistle at me, young man. The man looked surprised. People laughed, but no one noticed Ralph. A mother came by. A mother and her little boy came by. Ralph tried again. This time he said, "Give me a cracker." The mother did not see Ralph. She said, "Billy, you just had lunch." The little boy looked surprised. People heard her, but no one noticed Ralph. Then a boy and a girl went by. They were having an argument. The boy walked ahead. He was mad. Ralph said, "I love you." He hoped someone would scratch him on the neck. The boy turned around and kissed the girl. "I thought you were mad at me," she said. They held hands, but no one noticed Ralph. Ralph felt sad and cold. He wanted to be inside with Mr. and Mrs. Muggs, where it was warm and cozy. Just then, Ralph saw something bright in a window nearby. It looked like the flames in the fireplace at home. "Fire," he said sadly. "Fire," he said a little louder. A tear rolled down his beak. "Fire!" Ralph screamed. A man in a big hat heard him. He stopped and looked around. He saw the flames coming from the window. The man ran to a phone booth. In a few minutes, Ralph heard loud sirens. A red fire truck raced up to the perch and stopped. A man in a rubber coat ran over. At last, someone noticed me, Ralph thought, but the fireman just picked him up and put him in a tree. People were shouting. Smoke and water were everywhere. Ralph was frightened. See, fighting the fire and all the water, smoke. At last, the fire was put out. The man yelled with the big hat, "Quiet!" Everyone turned and looked. "This bird is a hero," the man said. Some people laughed. They thought the man was joking. "He was the one who yelled fire." The man said, "I noticed him and I looked for a phone booth." "Fire!" Ralph said happily. Someone had noticed him. He's happy because he got noticed now. "Oh," said the people. They cheered. "What a smart bird," said a woman. "He has saved lives," said the fireman. "He should get a reward," said the man in the big hat. Just then, Ralph saw Mr. and Mrs. Muggs coming home from work. "Hello, hello," he said. Mr. and Mrs. Muggs ran over to him. "How did you get out here?" asked Mrs. Muggs. "What happened?" asked Mr. Muggs. The man in the big hat told them the story of how Ralph had become a hero. Mr. and Mrs. Muggs were proud of him. They scratched and tickled him. Ralph got several rewards. He got to ride in the fire truck. He got his picture in the newspaper. He got free sesame seed crackers for life. But best of all, people noticed Ralph. See everyone noticing Ralph? The end.